All right, so hey, let's dive into the very start of biology here as we look at kind of some things we're going to be looking at throughout the course, and then also what are all what is biology is maybe one of the better questions of the day there. All right, so when we talk about biology, we're talking about the study of life. All right, so anything that is considered living matter is going to fall in that biology realm. Now, inside of living matter, there are chemical processes and physical processes, but that unit as a whole is biological. All right, and so biology, we're going to be looking at living things as far as science goes. Currently, we know about 2 million unique living species here on Earth, and there's estimates that there might be up to upwards of 40 million species on the planet, meaning we've only discovered a small fraction. Now, as we think about that, there is not large megafauna or large, like mammals and those kind of things that we haven't found. A lot of that is microbial life, maybe some deep ocean stuff, but there's a lot of things out there that we still haven't figured out yet. All right, and there's a lot of fields within biology as we look at. There's microbiology to look at those microorganisms. There's ecology where we look at the entire ecosystem, and so biology is kind of a huge, all-encompassing field of science. Before we can dive too far into biology, though, we have to ask ourselves, how do we determine if something is living? All right, so we know certain things like water. We know water isn't, it behaves differently than some of the other structures and elements and compounds that we see, but we know water's not alive, even though it's moving, even though it is just essential for life. And so we have to look at, now, how do we determine if something is alive? And we have these 8 basic characteristics of living things. Number one, all organisms are going to have at least one cell. And so a cell is the basic building block of structure and function for living matter. And so if you're human beings, you have trillions of cells all stacked on top of each other, behaving in certain ways. If you are a E. coli bacteria, you just got one in there, but they still have cells. Number 2 is organization. So even within that organism or that cell, there's some structure. Now, once again, if you're a mammal, we have cells and we have tissues and we have organs and organ systems and all of those things that provide structure. But even if you're a bacteria, if you open it up, there are going to be some cell parts in there. All right, so there needs to be some sort of organization. It's not just random. 3 is a metabolism or using energy. Whether you get it from the food that you eat, the sun, heat from those deep thermal vents, living things consume energy and use different gases. For us, it's oxygen in order to complete those cellular processes. Number 4 is homeostasis. All right, so homeostasis is it's kind of like an internal balance. We always think about human beings, our temperatures are around 98, 99 degrees. That is that maintaining that internal balance. But you also have a blood pressure, that 80/20 is kind of that ideal range, an internal pH, blood glucose level. So we have kind of that Goldilocks range of a lot of things that we function with. Number 5 is growth. So capable of growing. Now, if you're like me, you're done growing vertically as you get older, but your body is still capable. I can still grow horizontally, but my body can still change and grow and adapt and develop in there. Number 6 is reproduction, or the capacity to reproduce. So passing on your genetic material to offspring, whether it's sexually or asexually. Number 7 would then be having genetic material to pass on. So DNA for us as humans, RNA, and some, most bacteria though are DNA still. And then the last one is being able to evolve as a species. Now, not as an individual, but over time, as if our species is able to adapt to the world that it's living in. So that's kind of how we look at the characteristics of living things. As we go through and just look at certain things, we got Frankenstein's monster there from your English classes. Is this alive? All right, we look at Arches National Park out in the Southwest. This rock formation, it's got some structure to it. All right, we can see the layers of rock. We can see about how they're deposited. It wasn't just random. However, we know that this thing is not using energy. It's not reproducing. It doesn't have cells, so it is not alive. All right, insects 100% considered life. All right, they fill all those requirements, even though they're small, even though their life looks different than ours, they are still living material. The bacteria that can make you sick. All right, this is E. coli. This is what causes food poisoning. All right, is it alive? 100% it's alive. It can reproduce. It can respond to its environment. It is capable of evolving. In this case, E. coli can evolve rather quickly. So E. coli, 100% considered living. We look at a single-celled organism. So here would be a look at just a generic single-celled organism like E. coli. And here's, I like this look because we can open it up and we can see that there's all kinds of structure in there and different functions that go with that. I'd already hinted at water and waterfalls, but water, even though it moves, even though it can change its size, even though it is required for living things, it itself is not a living thing. Similarly, when we look at our entire ecosystem as a whole, is the earth alive? It's a great question, but no, it has living things on it. It is made up of all kinds of like I said, biomes and all that kind of thing, but it is not reproducing. It does not have its own genetic material. It is a rock floating through space that we happen to live on. And then we look at some other things where we look at individual internal organs. Now, this is definitely biological. It was produced by a living thing, but your internal organs, this is a heart transplant. Your internal organs on their own are not living beings. All right, they are a part of you. And so you are one organism, and this is just a part within that organism. So not considered life itself, but a byproduct of life. And how we're going to end that up is as we're looking at life, so far we only know of one planet capable of sustaining life or that has sustained life, and that's Earth. But we're looking out there for other species, for other planets that have life. Now, we're looking for life that we're going to have a conversation with. Probably not. We can't even talk to the other organisms here on Earth. But we're looking for other signs of life out there. And so we look at what are we looking for? When we look for life on other planets, the big thing that we look for, and you're probably thinking it right now, is water. Right? As far as we know, life is wet. It needs water to survive. Almost all life on Earth is 70% water. All of our cellular functions are based on that balance. And so that's kind of a starting spot for us as we're looking for water. And in general, we're looking at habitats that can sustain homeostasis for organisms. We know that Venus is probably not a great place to look for life because the surface temperatures are several hundred degrees and would cook any proteins that were there almost instantly. And we also know planets that are extremely cold are going to be a tough place to find life too. So we're looking for that range to have liquid water for at least part of the year there. So there's some basics on just kicking off your biology class and going through what are some of those characteristics that all living things are going to have in common. So until next time.